Hi guys, I want to talk to you about a concept that we call the three-legged stool. Now, if you're living the three-legged stool, it could be one of the most significant things for your health. People that are living this philosophy, whether they know it or not, they may not call it that, but if they're doing it unconsciously and living a lifestyle that ticks the boxes for the three-legged stool, they're guaranteed to be in the top, you've got to say at least top 10% of health, if not higher. So it's a very simple philosophy. If you think about a stool that literally has three legs, if you shorten one of those legs or remove one of those legs altogether, that stool is going to fall over, or at the very least, if it's short, and it's going to be a little bit wavy and unstable. So if each leg of that stool is strong, is solid, and is equal length and is playing its part, then that stool can be nice and stable. So it's obviously just an analogy for what's happening in health. So there are three main criteria or sort of like topics within health that if you get these right, you will express the highest potential for you and for your health. So leg number one of the stool is living a natural and healthy lifestyle. This is probably the broadest leg of the stool out of all of them because there's so many different aspects to that leg. And frankly, it's what other natural health practitioners, speakers in this space, anyone who's a naturopath or even a natural doctor, people who are just living a natural and healthy lifestyle with the principles of what nature has given us, they're ticking that box. So for example, it's getting 7+ hours of sleep every night. It's drinking quality, either filtered or pure spring water. It's eating quality nutrition from knowing where it comes from, what source is it? Is it pesticide free? Is it grass fed? You know, all this kind of stuff with food. Food is a huge topic. So are you getting all the nutrients you need to? Is it stuff like being low electromagnetic field? Is it getting enough sunshine every day? Is it having positive social relationships and removing the negative crap that's up there in the subconscious? You know, we could go on and on. There's so much in this particular topic and this particular leg of the stool. And it's the one that's sort of talked about the most out there in the health spheres. People kind of think that's all there is. It's the big one, like podcasts, like you've got Huberman podcasts and stuff like that, to name just, probably the most popular one. They all hone in on all the aspects that could be considered in the natural and healthy lifestyle component. They talk about research and the latest thing and all this sort of stuff. And then people take supplements based on that. And that's great because there seems to be a health movement going on in society now. People are pushing away from the pharmaceutical model. They're pushing away from the synthetic, unnatural, form of things that has been pushed in our society for the last sort of 50, 100 years or so. So that's a great thing, but it's really only one leg to the stool. The next one, which does get talked about, not as much as the first one, but still does get talked about and is a big one, is being fit and strong. So when you are fit and strong, your body is more primed to do what it needs to do. It's going to be able to recover faster. You're going to be able to do more things that you want to do out there. So you've got the fitness and strength to be able to bend and move and have mobility and go for walks and actually live the life that you want to do. When you're not fit and strong, there's always a reason to not be able to do that. Or you're going to be able to do it to a certain point and then pain and unfitness is going to get in the way every time. Think of anything that you want to do in life. It all comes down to being able to be fit and strong to be able to do that thing to a certain level. There's always going to be a limitation if you're not fit and strong enough. So that's another massive topic. I love to talk about this one as well. There's a lot to say on it. There's a lot of different opinions in this space, but essentially find something that you enjoy doing and just be consistent with that. So there seems to be some broad rules around it though, like essentially stuff like spending about 3 days a week doing resistance training, strength training is sort of like the bare minimum to make progressive changes over time. Less than that, you're not really making much of a difference. And that's the biggest, lowest hanging fruit that I think most people are missing, to be honest, is the strength training. So if people thinking to start out, what should they do? And if they're short on time, do something for strength or resistance training. That's going to move the needle the most. And then after that, it becomes more about cardiovascular. And there's lots of other aspects, but if you hit that strength training, resistance training piece first, you're hitting the biggest part of being fit and strong. And then the third leg to the stool, which I think is forgotten about the most, and frankly, it just comes down to ignorance. Now, I mean that in the true sense of the word. People are literally ignorant of this fact. They just don't know. So if you don't know what you don't know what you're missing out on. There are people in the health space that have been in that space for decades, and they'll go on and on about the natural and healthy lifestyle stuff, which I said, of course, that's a foundational thing. And then the more enlightened ones will also go on and about being fit and strong. Not many of them, to be honest, but the good ones will. So they get those two prongs right. But then there's this one fact that the vast majority of even people in the natural space don't know, which is that if your spine or your joints of your body are subluxated, which means they're restricted, they're tender, they're not moving properly, they're weak upon muscle testing, and they're actually out of alignment relative to the ideal shape of the spine. So there's both of those things. Then you cannot express the full version of your health. It is not physiologically possible. Chiropractors have known this to some degree since the late 1800s. The research in the last 20 years has really, I want to say proven that, but there's a lot of quality research that really says you better be looking at this stuff, because when a spine is subluxated versus one that's been well adjusted, the difference in nervous system health is vast. And that's not just people with pain versus no pain. It's two groups. They take two groups in the study and go, both of these groups have no pain. Let's keep this one subluxated as the control group. Let's adjust this one and watch their health change over time. And it's always the group that gets adjusted that gets vastly better. That's relative to placebo, and that's without pain. And there's multiple different ways they've done studies, the way the brain reacts, the way the gut and the intestines react, the way the overall autonomic nervous system reacts, the way people feel intellectually and emotionally. There's so much different research on that shows the difference between having a subluxated or a dysfunctioning spine versus a spine that's actually moving properly and has been well adjusted. Vast difference, night and day. So that third leg to the stool is being properly adjusted. And so people who are living the three-legged stool lifestyle get adjusted on a rhythm. Now that rhythm is different for everyone. So people who have left it too late in their life and start getting adjusted by the time they're in sort of like phase 3 degeneration, they're going to need a lot more care ongoing to even keep at a certain level of spinal function. They're going to get through that initial phase and get them functioning better, but to stay at that level, they're going to require more frequent care. People who've started sort of maybe more like in their 20s and 30s, maybe they need it not as much, but they're still going to need fairly frequent care to stay at a certain level, because essentially they've neglected it for so long. This principle goes for people who start fitness late too. You're going to have to put a lot more work in than someone who was fit and healthy from a childhood and from their teens. And people who've taken good care of themselves from early age still need to get adjusted on a rhythm, but that rhythm doesn't need to be as often. Their overall ability to hold an adjustment and stay strong within the spine is much better than those people who have started from a worse point. But not just that, people who are living the other two prongs of the stool hold their adjustments better and need less adjustments to stay at optimal health. So the three-legged stool works together. If you're fit and strong, if you are leading a healthy and natural lifestyle, and if you're getting adjusted on a rhythm, all three of those things work together, and that person will express the best version of their health. What we unfortunately see with a lot of people, and we're working really hard here at Premium Health to make this, we're trying to get as many people living the three-legged stool as possible, but what we tend to see is we might have someone come in and they're an absolute champion at natural and healthy lifestyle. They're so honed in on nutrition. They're so honed in on having a healthy home. They're so honed in on quality education for their kids. They're honed in on low EMF. They've got the best quality water. They're always getting their sun time, and so on and so on. And they're just like so dialed in. They're doing all the right stuff nutritionally, biochemically. Everything ticks that box. But then they're only coming in twice a year to get adjusted. You're just leaving this huge amount of your health on the table. Or likewise, you've got someone that's like really their main focus is being fit and strong, and the gym is their thing, or fitness is their thing, or sport is their thing, and they're absolute stars at that. And they're fit and strong and they're doing great. And then maybe their diet's okay. And then maybe they're only sleeping 6 hours. And then maybe they work too much, so that work-life balance is out, and so on. But maybe they do get adjusted at a good frequency. So maybe they got 2 to 2.5 two and a bit of out of the three, but they're still not living the full three. It's the people that really go, yep, I'm getting adjusted on a rhythm. I've broken the bad habits and I'm leading a natural and healthy lifestyle and I'm fit and strong. Those people, no exceptions, will always be the healthiest to their genetic potential. It's always to your genetic potential. So one person could express a higher level of health based on their genetic potential and their age and their history versus the next person, but you've got to give yourself that chance. If you're not doing all three of the three-legged stool, you can't express the highest level of health for you. So ask yourself that question. Out of those three legs of the stool, natural and healthy lifestyle, being fit and strong, and being adjusted on a rhythm, how many of those three are you living? And if you're living bits of all three, maybe they're all at 20, 30, 40, 50%. In 2026, how much can you wind those up and get them closer towards 100% for all of them? Maybe just start with the biggest one today. Go, how can I do something today to move closer towards getting all three of those dialed in? There's something to think about.